Hey everybody, welcome to Tech Twice Weekly for October. Oh, hey, you stop that. Welcome to Tech Twice Weekly for October 30th, 2014. This is your source for the most important technology news stories and discussion every Monday and Thursday evening. I'm your host, Ben White, and tonight is my guest and good friend. That's what I'm trying to say, Eric Fee. Hey man, thanks for being on the show.
Howdy.
Clearly, I'm a little out of practice after missing a couple of episodes. But we're here. We'll get to the show. We'll get back in the groove of things. I do apologize for missing a couple episodes. I've had a very chaotic last week with some personal things going on, but all is good. All is well. Things are going the up and up, and we've got some top stories to cover. While not technically tech news, the Next Web is passing along information from Variety that claims comedian actor Seth Rogen is being considered to play the role of Steve Wozniak in the upcoming Steve Jobs biopic. This comes after previous news of Christian Bale being cast to play the role of Steve Jobs himself. In case you've missed all the news about Currency recently, an alternative mobile payment platform and competitor to Apple Pay and Google Wallet, CNN Money is covering news that the service, which stores users' bank account information online in their secured cloud, has been hacked. This recent hack only resulted in the email addresses for every person who had signed up for the service to be stolen. However, it also makes me seriously think twice about trusting the program with my bank account information. We'll have more on this topic in our discussion section. TechCrunch is reporting on Autodesk starting a 3D printing fund with $100 million. The purpose of the fund is to use the money to fund startups and designers in 3D printing related fields. Autodesk is making it clear that they want to focus on all aspects of 3D printing. This includes hardware, software, materials, marketplaces, and maker spaces. Additionally, those who receive funding through the fund from Autodesk will become part of their partner program, giving them access to developer and marketing resources. Engadget is covering MSI's announcement of their newest gaming laptop, the KT80 Titan. The 18-inch beast sports an impressive mechanical keyboard using Cherry Brown MX switches, along with a trackpad that doubles as a number pad as well. Currently, no pricing or actual system specs have, or even a release date, have been announced, but expect this to end up weighing in as quite a high-end machine. Wired is covering Fiat Chrysler spinning off the famous Ferrari brand into its own independent company. Although that may not last long, as there are already rumors floating around of Toyota buying Ferrari. The real big change to consider, though, is the very real possibility of Ferrari leaving the Formula One racing scene behind. Well, Ferrari holds the distinct honor of being the only Formula One team to compete in every F1 race going all the way back to the 1950s. They haven't won a Constructors' Championship since 2008 or ran a Drivers' Champion since 2007. Ferrari's racing team brings in around $400 million a year, but even with that income, it is far from profitable. New company owners could decide to simply the expense of the racing team simply isn't worth it. What do you think about this, Eric? I know you're a big car guy and we've talked Ferraris before. What are your thoughts?
I don't think that whoever buys Ferrari will stop their F1 endeavors. Ferrari is such a big key for F1, and they've steered a lot of rules, decisions, and racing terms over the years, and I highly doubt that whoever is going to buy Ferrari is going to be looking to make a huge amount of money. Ferraris are relatively expensive and are sold in small numbers compared to other other more pedestrian car models. I haven't heard anything about Toyota buying Ferrari, but that'd be very interesting. Toyota has a luxury brand, Lexus, which already makes a very renowned, although extremely poorly selling and overpriced, Lexus LFA supercar.
Do you think it's realistic for another mainstream manufacturer like Toyota to actually pick up something like this, or do you think it would be more likely to go to maybe a private buyer who's looking to really just specialize the brand?
It's a good question. If Toyota did buy it, that would be an interesting turn to the classically Italian brand, that's for sure.
And the
As
article,
far as
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, as far as private buyers go, I haven't heard anything about that.
I know one thing that's worth mentioning is that in the Wired article, they did make it clear that the original Ferrari family, no matter who picks up the company, will still maintain 10% ownership of the company. It's not a controlling interest. Anyone buying the company will be able to get a controlling interest in the brand. Um, the family is still involved with 10% ownership, and the Fiat Chrysler is still actually holding on to 20% ownership even while they're spinning it out. So clearly they recognize there's some profits left in the name.
Maybe.
All right. Well, we're keeping the news a little short this week. We got kind of a larger discussion topic I want to make sure we have time for. But I did come across a couple of interesting tech gadgets for our Tech Toys You Wish You Could Buy section. One of them is one of them is okay, neither of them are practical, but one you actually might buy. The other one you'll just kind of wish you could buy. We'll start with the first one. It's an interesting toy for kids that is a tricycle that actually leans left and right more like a two-wheeled bike. So when you're cornering, you're not making quite such wide corners like a traditional tricycle would make. Um, you can actually bank on the corner. The seat and the whole body frame leans left and right thanks to a hinge on the back, and it's kind of an interesting design. And I was thinking you might be able to elaborate a little bit on this, Eric, because to me, not of course not knowing anything, it seems to remind me a little bit of seeing you ride your motorcycle as far as leaning to make corners go. Or maybe a better comparison would be some of those three-wheeled motorcycles or trikes. I don't know what the right term for them are.
The kind of the tricycle employs a torsion bar up, it appears, that connects the neck to the rear base plate that's holding the rear two wheels. So it can only lean so far either direction. I like it. I think that it's kind of cute. I don't know. It looks a little unstable, but it might be better for kids to learn on than a regular tricycle. The author goes through his thought processes that putting a kid on this tricycle is valuable to their learning how to ride a bicycle later in life because it gets them comfortable with the idea of leaning in a direction or another, which I can see the connection there. I don't know what the price was for it, but it looked pretty cool.
They're
As far
saying
as more,
it was a
sorry.
$300 price point is what they're looking at. A little bit steep, but on the higher end of a well-built kid's toy.
Well, yeah, but it looks like it's mostly wood, so it's $225 too much.
Is
But
there any racing slicks on the tires?
yeah, right. Um, as far as motorcycle leaning goes, there's a huge difference in the physics involved for multiple reasons. And at speed, anyways, not for these kids' toys, but at speed, tricycles with two wheels in the rear and one wheel in the front are fairly dangerous. They basically the two wheels, for one, stop it from leaning, and two, they compromise the weight distribution, making it so they're really easy to tip over. And that's why we've seen uh, more trikes coming out recently for with two wheels in front and one wheel in the back, because where all the weight is for the motor and the rider and all that, you have these two posts up in front, so you have a significantly lower chance of falling over.
That's interesting because thinking back, I do remember falling over on my tricycle.
I
The
can't.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I had a tricycle when I was a kid, but I was really young. I got a bicycle pretty early. Pretty early.
Yeah, yeah. No, I remember tricycle. I remember getting rid of when I was pretty young. I remember riding the hell out of my big wheel though, even when I was like 8 and way too big for it. I would just use all my extra power and peel out in my big wheel. But I suppose those are different physics altogether. Well, the other tech toy I found, and this is very much a toy for the very rich. It's the Aero Mobile 3.0. It is a flying car that can drive on the road and fly for traveling up to 500 miles. It is, I don't know, I think it's pretty cool myself. It's created by a startup. It's just a prototype. It's nothing that's currently in manufacture, but it's about the size of a minivan with 100 horsepower engine, four cylinders, with a top speed in flight of 100 miles per hour. Um, and you can fly for 500 miles. Altitude, they say, is limited to 9,800 feet to avoid having to pressurize the cabin. So it's definitely a relatively low flying craft. But the outer frame is carbon fiber, keeping it strong while light. And when driving, the wings on the plane actually retract behind the body, so that way you're not chopping off other cars on the freeway. Um, they're aiming for a release date in 2015 of some kind, and while pricing hasn't officially announced, they're currently expecting pricing to be more than 100,000 euros, but less than 250,000 euros. And at least as far as things are concerned across the pond, you will still need a flight license to take off with this thing, and I would certainly expect as much in the U.S. What do you think, Eric? If money was not an issue, would you buy one of these crazy contraptions?
Oh, you mean a driving plane? No thanks.
Really? I thought you'd be all over something like this.
If money was no object, I'd buy one of those submarines that like does flips and you can jump out of the water with, that look like marine animals.
Okay, so you're more for the
You seen those
sub.
things?
Are you talking about a dedicated submarine or one of the cars that could become a submarine?
Oh no, it's a dedicated submarine. I'm trying to remember the name of those things. They're not really submarines. They're more like enclosed jet skis. They can go like a few feet underwater, but they book it pretty fast.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what those are called, but I do remember them. They looked amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of them because they were pretty freaking sweet. But yeah, that's the kind of thing I'd probably buy if money was no object, or
You
not.
next terra firma?
Yeah, I don't really have much interest in learning to fly. And it sounds kind of lame, but I guess I'm just.
Somebody's got to tackle the ground. There's lots of ocean we haven't seen yet.
Well, it's not really that kind of submarine. It's called a sea breacher, was the name, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I've always been really fascinated with flying, and since I was a little kid, I wanted to get my pilot's license and go up and fly, but it's so damn expensive, and I don't know. It's one of those bucket list things that the kid in me always wants to be able to do, but the adult in me knows how reality works. And the closest to flying I'm going to get is a bucket seat in coach. But who knows? Maybe this will become common someday and it won't be astronomically expensive, right? Right?
Or you'll strike it rich.
Look, if I'm gonna bet money on the impossible, I'm gonna assume these become common because that's far more likely than than me striking it rich. That
Uh,
means I'd like to support the show.
if you want to help, if you want to help Ben buy a driving plane,
If you would like to fund Tech Twice Weekly's effort to buy a driving plane, please send PayPal Aractor, ARACTOR, at proslackers.com.
or you can vote for the Sea Breacher, the Tech Twice Weekly Sea Breacher, and send it to Eric, cogs at proslackers.com.
There you go. There you go, audience. Make your vote. Make your money count. Get there. One lucky listener will get to come with us on whatever device you buy.
the Yeah, sure. Take
We'll,
turns.
we'll even pay your airfare because you went so far as to buy this ridiculous toy.
Yeah, they're paying for their own airfare realistically.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put those dreams away and remember that I'm never going to own a driving plane and go back to the real, depressing world where things like currency exist and are potentially risking my bank account information out to everyone. I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier in the week. You actually filled me in on some of the backstory about this, and currency sounds pretty terrible.
It's because it is. Not only will they be able to breach your bank account information eventually, but also your health information.
Yeah, I did read an article this morning kind of clarifying the health information part of currency. And I mean, granted, it's seemed like a lot of political spin, but the angle that was coming from the spokesperson was that currency does not collect health information like weight, like activity, or heart rate, that sort of health information. The only reason that is in there is to meet HIPAA compliance so they can process currency can process transactions at pharmacies. That was the explanation given. Now, if you believe that, that's your call. But that was the official explanation given by the company.
Well, not only so they can process, but so they can also log that information so they know how much you're paying for it, so they can send that to their distributors and their marketing information and everything else. Not only are they see that's the problem with currency is currency functions to do one thing. make life better for companies, not for people. If it was supposed to make life better for people, they wouldn't have outlawed NFC on their point of sale as part of the contract.
Right. That's just very true. They're definitely. I mean, I recognize and I sympathize that the goal of currency is to bypass credit card transaction fees, and I'm on board with that. I am completely okay with these companies trying to find a way to bypass the expensive credit card fees. That's cool. I'm good with that. But it's not going to lower prices for customers. It's going to increase profits if it even takes off. And two, given the exclusivity agreement that has to be put into place, you're removing payment choice for customers. And last I checked, the last thing a business should be doing is limiting the way customers can give you money.
Yeah, not only that, but the idea that currency then has your complete transaction history from everything you've ever purchased, because with Google Wallet and Apple Pay, you don't get that. Um, you might have information on the transactions, but the companies who you purchase from don't, because they use credit card numbers effectively, and those that information on what you purchase they can't get from credit card companies. First of all, second of all, there's also the very important talk about liability for purchases. With currency, you are effectively giving up all recourse you have for liability. You have no legal resources for stolen information or for hijacked bank account numbers or stolen money. Whereas with a credit card company, even through proxy, someone else making a card for you, even if it's temporary, you still have protection by law from what you've purchased and how that's used. So if someone somehow gains access to your credit card or credit card number or credit card information and then purchases something, you have recourse and you don't have to pay, and you're not liable for those credit card transactions, which is very important. I would know it's happened to me before. Some guy bought $500 of stuff on my card at Walmart.com, and all I did was file a thingamajigger, and my bank took care of it, like they were legally bound to do.
Yeah, no, I know exactly where you're coming from because I went through a very similar situation last summer where I went to buy lunch and discovered I didn't have money, which was interesting because I had lots of money before when I went to bed the night before. And looking at my bank account, someone in Ohio had bought a couple $1,000s in baby furniture. And given that I'd never been to Ohio and don't have a baby, the bank gave me that money back because it went through as a MasterCard transaction.
Yep. And so not only with currency are they tracking all your information to sell uh, to make more money, they are also giving you no recourse and no liability protection for your purchases.
Now, I will say I'm less concerned about the tracking my purchases aspect personally, but then again, I also am willing to buy into most grocery store their customer loyalty programs, Safeway, Fred Meyer's, all of those. I'm more than happy to sign up for those because of the discount or coupons or whatever they're giving me in exchange. I'm okay with that. I'm actually so public with my purchase information. I'm actually part of the Nielsen home scan program. I voluntarily report all of my purchases made to Nielsen for part of their statistical analysis gathering. So I'm personally very public with my purchases. I have no problem with that. But that's probably the only part of currency that I'm on board with.
Sure. Um, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, we have to contend with the information, which, by the way, when your grocery store does it, they usually don't sell your personal information, just your purchase history. Um, and and Fred Meyer doesn't know what you purchased at Safeway and vice versa. So
Right.
there's
That
that.
you don't have the full aggregate data.
Um, and of course, now we've seen that they've already had a security breach. When they only have invite only members, they already have had a security breach. And I doubt that it's the first. Um, Plus, I've never heard of Mercantile Exchange before, the company that made currency. But Google and Apple hold a lot of data for a lot of people. Um, so you have to say that Google and Apple are fairly experienced with this kind of information hosting, exchange, and protection, whereas Mercantile Exchange, never heard of them.
Well, and the other part too is Apple and Google have a lot to lose. If they screw up card processing, their entire business reputation is on the line. If this other company screws up, they just they file some paperwork, go bankrupt, rename themselves into some other faceless company that no one's ever heard of, and start making some new contract agreements again. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a bad company to start a business with.
Well, not only that, but you also have to look at it from the business's point of view. Their early adopter business agreements I read cost the business more between $250 and $500,000 just to buy into the currency, whatchamacallit. And then they need to replace all of their point of sale hardware.
And
So,
I don't understand that. Why would someone want to put that much investment into the system to save? I know there's a significant savings if you can get rid of credit card fees, but at the loss of your customers' trust and your customers' ability to make payments in some capacities?
well, not only that, but there's a high chance that the largest portion of their business will still come from credit cards and cash transactions. So they'll still need to make up that money back, not counting buying new point of sale, just counting the buy-in for currency. They'll have to process somewhere on the ends of $1 to $10 million. They'll have to process that much cash through currency to just pay for the buy-in.
It just doesn't seem to make sense because that's a good point. You're not getting rid of credit card transactions by making this transition. People are still going to, oh, I can't pay with my phone. Let me pull out my Visa debit card or my Visa credit card and pay you that way. I mean, if I just can't wrap my head around it. If I hit a terminal, and I'm not a big NFC payer, I've done it once or twice to find out it works, but if if I were to pull out my iPhone and say, oh, you don't take Apple Pay. Well, let me get in my wallet and give you my credit card. That's how the transaction's going to go, and that doesn't help the merchant at all.
I use a Google Wallet card, so fuck. I mean, that's like I get Google Wallet and I'm using a debit card, so I got to pay for the debit card regardless.
So you prefer to use the physical card rather than using NFC on your phone when it's available?
It depends where I shop more than anything.
Okay, yeah, because NFC still isn't very widespread. It's better than it was, but it's not everywhere.
Well, not only that, but with currency popping up for all these businesses, they're having to take their point of sale system offline or turn off the NFC payment as part of the agreement with the currency.
I just
That's another thing.
fundamentally can't understand taking away choice.
Well, so they can, of course, force you to use their stupid app, which I'll will be cut dead using.
Right, and that's just it. If I'm at the store, the transaction isn't going to be, oh, we have this currency thing. Would you like to install it so you can pay wirelessly at our collection of stores and use something different in every other store you're in? The answer is going to be no. No, I would not. I don't want to set up something special just for you. You're not a unique snowflake.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know, man. It just seems like a whole load of mumbo jumbo to me. And not only that, but I don't really see the benefit for consumers. Even if you discount all of the problems that we've just talked about, I still don't see a huge benefit for consumers.
I don't see a benefit for businesses.
Well, they're thinking long term, and by long term, I mean this whole deal is being spearheaded by Walmart. So
Right, but it only works long term if you actually have buy-in. And I don't know.
they
I
have
feel
buy-in.
I feel like this has all been really ham-fisted. It's like the concept, the core idea. Let's rally together to come up with a system to get rid of credit card transaction fees. Great. The premise that this started on is an excellent problem that should be solved for merchants, especially smaller merchants. That being said, currency is not the answer.
No, the answer is like pin and chip or some other kind of mandated standard protocol that can be used that it doesn't isn't bound to Visa or Mastercard.
Well, pin and chip is just security, though. That doesn't affect credit card fees one way or the other, right?
It depends on who is running the transaction. If
Oh, because
the
you're getting more debit transactions in that situation.
Well, the idea is that not a credit card system does not necessarily need to be run through Visa or Mastercard's payment processing. If there was an open protocol that banks could implement where you just use your like ATM card, your bank card can function as a like a debit card, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a Mastercard or a Visa card. It can just be a card.
And well, I think the big catch there that was always going to be a hurdle is by choosing to go direct from your bank account, and bypassing the fees, you're you're saving the bank money, but you're giving up your credit protection on those purchases. So there's, for the consumer, you're not gaining anything by doing the bank a favor.
Well, that's true, but there's no reason why you can't also implement laws to protect the money from your bank account in the same way that you would with a credit card through that kind of transaction. I mean, that's another big problem with the United States is we don't have a standard way of electronic funds transfer other than adding your bank account to someone else's system and
Right.
doing a wire.
Right. I mean, ACH transactions.
Yeah. If there's a better way to have electronic funds transfers that any bank or credit union could implement, and then there was a pin and chip built around that system that any bank or credit union could implement, and then there were laws to protect the consumers through the usage of that bank card effectively, you could replicate the similar liability protection that we have without having to deal with the Visa slash MasterCard payment processing monopoly.
Very true. Very true.
There are ways to solve this problem, and some other countries have already done it, but we haven't. And currency's implementation has been found wanting.
Yeah, at the least. So what do you say? In how long until this failure goes away, do you think? Are we going to be talking about this in a year?
Probably not. They might still be around, but I doubt that they're going to have the kind of traction that they might believe. And I feel sorry for people who don't know the full story and go in installing apps like this on their phone and connecting their bank account to people like this. But it's only going to take a number of lawsuits until they're made to be liable.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. I think within a year, if currency is still in operation in merchant stores, I think it's going to end up coming up with some sort of NFC um, option. I think they're going to have to if they want to even have a shred of survivability. But time will tell. This is definitely a story we'll keep our ear on as it develops. Like I said, Eric just brought this to my attention earlier this week, and right away there's an email hack. That's great. So I don't expect that this is the last we'll hear about currency, but right now a lot of the news is just repeating the same stories over and over and over again. So hopefully, if there is anything new to report, we'll have that on Monday's show. All right. Well, I know the show is just a hair shorter than we've been running lately, but there wasn't a whole lot of news to cover, and I really wanted to get to that currency discussion because I think it's important that people understand what currency is, and if you decide that currency is something you want to be part of or is something that you're okay with, I'm not to judge anyone for using it, but understand what you're getting into. It's people who get involved who are uneducated about how the system works and the what they're getting for their choices. Those are the people I'm worried about getting burned.
Not only that, but if you are very interested in currency and maybe have a different opinion or idea or information than us, drop us a line. Feedback at techtwiceweekly.com.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from somebody, especially if you happen to be one of those early adopter members by chance who has been trying out the system. I would love to hear your opinion of it, especially someone from the inside, because all of the reports right now that I see out there are the outside looking in, and majority of them have never even had hands-on time with the point of sale system. It's all just opinion and speculation. So yeah, if somebody out there has something like that to contribute, I'd love to hear from you. Email's great, or Twitter at Tech Twice Weekly. All right. Well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and draw the show to a close here. Um, we are at techtwiceweekly.com. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so there. Of course, we're also in iTunes and Stitcher, Blueberry, and if we're not in your favorite podcatcher, let us know. I'm happy to get the show added in there. So, with that being said, we are back on track, we are back on schedule, and we will be back on Monday. Have a good weekend, everybody.